All right, looks like Twitch is back. Oops. And looks like YouTube's back. And Restream says everything's back as well. Let me just get YouTube updated again. Yep, dropped early this time. And that was a Wi-Fi drop on the streaming computer here. So all right. We'll continue on. All right, so now we're going to move on to step number 21. We want to turn the whole frame around. This is where our motor gets mounted. And make sure that our wire is down. So basically the J, the bottom, the foot of the J is going to go down. It goes up against its mounting holes on the frame here. So ensure the correct orientation. We want to make sure that our T-nuts are in the correct spot here as it points out in the blue. And we're going to secure this to the frame with the 2 remaining M10 nuts that we pulled out. And those are going into the nuts that we seated in there earlier. Again, I'm not getting those nuts seated in all the way. Let me get them seated down in there all the way. Oh yeah, those get buried down in there. Yeah, so if you're doing this step and you don't get those nuts a good probably 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter beneath the layer of plastic there, they are not seated in, and you're not going to be able to get that screw to grab all the hold of them when you're pushing the screw through the frame. In. That one's in. All right, so Y motor is now mounted. All right, so now we're going on to the Y-axis carriage. Beautiful. Obviously, once you start getting motors mounted and wires kind of floating around on your machine, be very careful and make sure those, the connectors aren't being, damaged when you're moving things around. Make sure that your where wires come out of the motor, make sure that's all good. You don't want to damage any of that while you're doing any of this. So now we need our Y-axis carriage. So here we go. We're also going to need, where did I put the rest of the hardware there? Y-axis carriage. Just had it. Where'd it go? There it is. So now we're going to need, we need the U-bolts. The U-bolts I have here already have the nylon lock nuts on here. So it's going to be an M3. Well, it's not M3, it's there it is. So it's actually a M5.5 bit. Let me wait till I'm instructed to do that. Let me just get that part there. Actually, I'm going to take them off. I do want to take them off of here, because these are going to be some of the nylon. These are the 6 nylon lock nuts that we need. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 U-bolts, and 5, and 6, and 3 U-bolts, and then we need two M3 times 10 screws. So I think they gave us new nylon lock nuts in here, just not the U-bolts. So we'll move those to there. Do this with the old nylon lock nuts. So correct bearing orientation. So what they're talking about again is, and the bearings are actually brand new ones they provide in the upgrade kit. So 1, 2, and 3. So when making sure the orientation is shown in the picture, one of the bolts has to be cut out. Countersunk. It's a very important part of assembly which can significantly influence the printer's behavior. Please read the following lines carefully. Place the Y carriage on a flat surface, desk. Insert linear bearings in the cutout and secure it by the U-bolt. Hold thumb on the U-bolt, turn the carriage, place the nylock nuts on both ends of the U-bolt. Start tightening the nuts, but ensure you're tightening both nuts equally. As soon as they each reach the surface of the Y carriage, stop tightening. We'll finish tightening the nuts in the next step. Repeat these steps for the remaining. I thought it said something in here about the orientation, because it still has this little dot right here. They say that it's now completely the same across, so no matter if you do it like this or like this, it's exactly the same, which I'm inclined to believe, obviously. But at the same time, if I remember correctly, that little cutout needed to be the bottom, so I'm gonna make it the bottom again. So I'm using a little trick from last time. What I like to do is take a black permanent marker and mark on the metal where the tracks are, so it's easier to see once we get them on the frame where the tracks are. I'm just going to mark 2 sides. Just kind of eyeballing it the best I can, obviously. There we go. And I'll do the other ones as I get them done. So I'm going to place one. bearing track straight down, the U-bolt through, hold the U-bolt. That is a tough job to do. Tight on there, flip it over, get our nylock nuts on there. Not even getting that down to the metal yet because you want to tighten them evenly. There we go. We don't want to tighten them all the way down yet. So let's go on to the next one. Same thing here. I haven't tried. It's actually a good point. I never liked those for one reason that you mentioned earlier about another part, is that they if they screw into plastic. I don't know about yours, but mine didn't have nuts in them because the clearance issues. Where did I put them? Let's see if they fit. I don't remember where I put them now. Yeah, if I can't find them, I'm not going to try, but yeah, I don't remember where I put them. These drawers. I might eventually upgrade, see if they have any new ones, but the U-bolts worked out really good on the M3. I remember where I put them now. It's gonna kill me if I don't find them. Up to there. Yeah, so the ones I had, the screws go straight into the plastic pieces here, so I'm not really comfortable with reusing the same plastic pieces because I've already threaded in the screw and then unthreaded it. So getting thread exactly right again is going to be tough. And if I remember correctly, grab this bolt right here. Yeah, the clearance tolerance between the bearing and where this nut would have to go is very, very, very little. So the chances of you damaging the bearing, because you're actually going past the circumference of the bearing here, it'd be very tough to fit a nut into this printed part here. Although I think the clearance tolerance on the Mk3 might be enough to where you could make this a little bit taller. No, you couldn't because of the extrusions, the long extrusions here. You don't have a lot of clearance, and actually that actually might even get in the way because of the thickness of the part to hold the bearing right here. It might crash into either the frame here or to the bearing there or to the extrusion there because it is a little bit more than the U-bolt. Let's see. Gonna check. Let's check. Yeah, it's definitely taller. I don't want to slide it onto the bearing and cause any problems. But it definitely is taller. So maybe someone out there has designed new ones. I haven't checked. But I definitely will. So let me continue on using the U-bolts though. good. And last bearing. This last bearing marked here. Makes me wonder why, and I'm sure there's probably a manufacturer out there that does it, but why a manufacturer doesn't mark where their bearing tracks are on the outside so that the end user can see where the bearing track is. I'm guessing if I've thought of it, most likely some technician or engineer or designer at a manufacturer's thought of it as well. There we go. Yeah, I didn't tighten it really at all. I was just getting it down to the metal so that it didn't rotate too much. I already wore off some of that permanent marker I was marking on that one. Yep, that's the big red warning right there. Oh, well, it says that read the lines carefully. Basically just getting the nut down till it touches the carriage and then stopping there. Trying to make sure I get them tightened evenly. There we go. There we go. It looks like all of my, see, it's still, that one's a little tighter, but that one's still loose in there. That one's a little tighter. I should probably tighten that one up just a smidgen more. I don't want them rotating as I'm doing stuff. On over tightening, that's as Flavor has pointed out, leads to deformation of the bearings and all the issues connected with it. Please follow the instructions. And fortunately, I have backup bearings upon backup bearings just in case I make a dumb mistake as I have in the past. So here we're double checking. Be sure again the nuts are tightened just to the surface and equally. Check if the bearing is centered in both directions. If not, slightly release the nuts and adjust its position, then retighten the nuts to the previous state. When you are ready, using pliers, rotate each nut but only 90 degrees. This is enough to fix the bearing without deforming it. Please repeat these steps for the remaining 2 linear bearings. So let's make sure we have a track in the right spot on all of them. I'm not even going to go 90 degrees. I'm just going to ensure that they're tight enough to where they're not going to back out. I'm just like finger tipping the tension here. Not even tightening these as I'm going around. I think you guys can't see on the camera. I'm just kind of making sure there's no play back and forth so the nut won't work its way out. So just kind of twisting it back and forth a little bit to make sure I can't loosen or tighten one of them any more than the rest. To make sure they're all equal. It looks like we got bearing tracks all in the right spots. So beautiful. And then now we want to use the last 2 M10 nuts to get the Y belt holder in place. So this is our last part here. So we want to make sure that the side with the 2 bearings has the opening for our belts. So there's the openings with the teeth in there to hold the belts into place. And we're going to tighten this down. Flavors, I'm sure you remember just as much as I do how much of a pain in the behind this portion was, because these screws also tightened into the bed. There was two the standoffs that were on the bed, and these screws went through the plate and into the bed, so that this was technically attached to the bed. And it was a big pain in the behind to get these on there right at the right time, because I think you were doing it after you put the carriage on the frame. They're in the Mk2S build, by the way. So that was a long time ago. Secure the Y behind with two M3 times 10 screws. Tighten them fully. Put the threads in the carriage. Let's get that down until it touches plastic. And I'm gonna get them just a little bit tighter. There we go. All right, so our Y carriage is now mostly complete. So take all the smooth rods and compare their lengths. For Y carriage, you need the mid-size rods, 3 30 millimeters. So I don't remember what size rods were on the Mk2S for the Y-axis. So here's all of our rods. We provide you with all new rods. So I can only assume that they are all different lengths now. Otherwise we may be reusing, or we would be reusing them. I could be wrong. So we need the 2 medium length ones. So we've got here in the picture. You think they're the same length? Why wouldn't we reuse them? I don't know. So we got our long ones, not it. Short ones, not it. Medium size ones. That's the ones we want. Take all the smooth rods, compare the sides. You need the mid-size rod. Maybe it's an quality improvement of the rod, maybe. Put those rest of the rods back in their home. Let's take a look. I think I've got, oh no, I can't get them out easily. They're still sitting on there. You know what? I'm going to take one over there and see if they're the same length. Yeah, they look to be exactly the same length. So, anyway, all right. So now this is where we need to be more smooth. Yeah, maybe they are. So be very careful and gently insert the rod in the bearings, not to apply too much force. So basically what we're going to do is we're threading the rod through the bearings. You want to make sure that you're not putting them at any angle. You can loosen some of the balls out of the bearings. If you feel any resistance, stop immediately, back up. Twisting it sometimes helps a little bit, just back and forth, not a full twist, but just kind of a tiny little rock back and forth. And then as it shows in the picture here, if these 2 bearings are angled at each other, this is going to be a little bit difficult. You need to loosen things up and tighten them back down so that they're straight. So let's see if I can get them through. Shouldn't have to apply too much force. Yep, I'm running into a block there. Let me try it on the other side. Yeah, that went way better. Oh, that went in beautifully. And this one's a little bit easier, but don't let that fool you. Still take your time. Make sure that you are sliding it in gently. You don't want any of those balls to pop out of their trace. In case you manage to put a ball out, 1 or 2 balls are okay, but if there's more of them, please consider ordering new bearings. So on to step 28. Take the Y carriage, including the smooth rods, and place them in the YZ frame. Make sure that the 2 bearings are on the left side of the frame. Using your thumbs, press them in. So basically, if we are looking at the frame forward, right? So we've got our motor in the back, right? just like I have the frame in the video here. Prusa logo would be right here. And then our idler is in the front there. We want to make sure that our two bearing side here is on the Prusa logo side, the left side of the frame. And we're going to flip this over, make sure that you don't let the smooth rods, I'm just going to grab it and twist it over like that. And then make sure that my Y motor wire is out of the way. Tuck that underneath there for a sec. And then place the ends of the Y motor of the smooth rods into their printed parts, and then we're going to use our thumbs and press the smooth rods inside all four holders. Shouldn't have to use excessive force, especially on the back since there's nothing underneath. They're only being held by the printed part. I'll bring that a little closer to myself here. And you can kind of look under, make sure that the smooth rod is to the bottom of the printed part, which it is. Beautiful. One last time, we're going to check the bearing orientation. On the left side, we got our 2, just like in the picture, and on the right side, we've got our 1. So just like the picture here, you can see that. And then step 29, we're going to grab some zip ties. Zip ties, zip ties, zip ties. And the smooth rod holders have channels built into them, made for zip ties. And then slide the zip tube through the holder. There's a slot. Connect the zip tie and tighten it. The head should be inside the frame. Use pliers, cut the remaining. Repeat this step for all 4 corners. So basically they're saying that the head of the zip tie should be on the inside of the frame here. So basically you want to start it from the outside, like you see there, with the teeth of the zip tie facing up. You can feed the head, or the zip tie through the head there. Pull it tight, make sure the head is on the inside there. Get that pulled nice and tight. And then we're going to kind of do the same thing but mirrored on the other side. Head's on the outside, teeth are up. Get the zip tie started on itself. Make sure the head's on the inside. And I'm making sure that it's down underneath all smooth rod, anything that it can get into the way of the bed carriage. Moving back and forth is not a good thing. So I'm going to flip the frame around now. Watching out for this cable. Slide that forward. Again, head out inside of the frame, teeth up. Sliding it around. Getting the zip tie started. Tightening it down with the head on the inside. There we go, and then mirroring that on the final one here. All right, and now I'm going to use my side cutters here. Get a nice cut on each of these zip ties. Step 30 says important proper alignment of the smooth rod is critical to reduce noise and overall friction. Ensure all M3 times 10 screw and the Y holders are released so that the printed parts are able to move. Move the Y carriage back and forth a couple times. So basically we're just using the carriage to get everything aligned. Where did my driver go? I put it down. There it is, right in front of me. So when they say release, basically just not tight. You don't want to pull them out or anything like that. So just want to make sure that they're not tight. So I'm just going to loosen up all of the M10 screws that hold this part in. That's able to move. That's able to move. He shouldn't move as much.